Recommended changes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes.
All right, motion by Pat, second by Joy. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes unanimously. Item B, discussion of comprehensive plans, financial capacity and capital investment plan chapter. So let's start with the fiscal capacity chapter, and I made some notes in the shared document. So did anybody have anything that they wanted to sort of talk about or bring up before we delve into some of those comments? Right. So I'm looking at the first page of that, the third paragraph. And it talks about local property values were last assessed in 2009. And then it says, however, the town used factoring in 2023 to bring the ratio for the state back up to 100%. So that struck me as awfully inside baseball language there. So
Yeah, I think like a definition or, because
I
I looked at it and then I had to Google it to try to understand what it was.
agree. I think an explanation that the layperson can use about what a factor reval is, and what the ratio means. And maybe Lorna, it might be instructive just to say what the impact on the values were as a result of that factor reval. Is there any oh, it says here Belgrade will likely need to plan for a revaluation in 5 years. That's accurate.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any idea what the cost of that would be?
Oh, you're talking probably close to 400,000, 350 to 400,000, at least.
So it might be instructive to include that in there because that's something that has to be planned for
Right.
And that's a big number.
financially.
It
It's a big
is.
number.
Revals are, I mean, these guys are booked, probably 2 years out. Yeah, but we should be, Rob said we should be good for at least 5 years. But I can have Rob give me some good language to explain. The factor reval, the certified ratio, maybe what it was and why we brought it up to 100%.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why is one reason is so people can enjoy the full benefit of their homestead exemption.
Yeah. A
But
lot of people don't know that when the certified ratio reduces, that they get a reduced
Right.
benefit.
um,
Does anybody know that?
No.
yeah, so it's not
You do
always,
know.
it's not always $25,000
On your homestead.
dollars. So in Winthrop, our ratio, we have a reval scheduled for 2026, and so our ratio is going to be somewhere in the 60s, which means you're going to realize 60% of $25,000 as your exemption. And then the other reason why is it better reflects true market value, and that has a typically a good impact on the mill rate. So table 1, Belgrade's debt analysis, and Grania had marked this as resolved. I would respectfully disagree. And so here's the reason why. So you see in 2020, the total amount of debt was about $800,000. The percent of valuation was about 1/10 of 1% of the valuation. In 2021, the total debt was about half of what it was 20, but the percent of valuation improved by tenfold. And so I'm questioning that figure, and then I question it again because the next year it jumps back up over $800,000 and the percent of valuation returns to 1/10 of 1%. So so that's not that 1 year, 2021, that can't be an accurate percent of valuation.
This is maybe just an error in spreadsheet calculations.
It could be. I had Nick run those figures. I'll have him recheck those. I did not check them over. I'm sure it's just a simple error. Hi, Barbara.
And then just as further proof that number in 2020 in table 1 is not accurate, is table 3, which lists the state valuations by year, and you don't see any market increase between 2019 and 2020 and 2021. So something's amiss there. And then I did have a question about table 4, 5 years of Belgrade's budget information. So is it fair to assume that these are actual figures versus budgeted figures?
These are actual.
Okay, good. And then with table 5, that mill rate in 2018, that is not correct because there was an increase from 2018 to 2019.
There was an increase in 2019. Does that also mean 2020, 21, 22?
No, from 2019 to 2022, it was flat.
Okay.
Then at the top of page 7, we mentioned factoring again, so more sort of government jargon there that may not be clear to a lot of folks.
Whatever I can come up with for that first section, I can add at the top of. Did you say top of 7?
Yeah.
I'm looking. So we can add the same language there.
And the last paragraph there above accounting practices, it says excise taxes are generally tied to economic conditions, but also in general, this revenue source will likely continue to increase slightly each year, which I think is accurate. But I also think it might be worth noting that because this was completely counterintuitive, that even during the pandemic, excise taxes increased. I mean, we were all bracing for a major decrease, thinking people would not be buying new vehicles during the pandemic, and yet they did. And that was a marked departure from the 2008 recession. So I think that might be worth noting it. I think excise taxes are more resilient as a revenue source than they have been in the past.
Excise taxes increased during the pandemic due to the influx of people coming in.
Well, they still have to buy new vehicles in order to, I mean, typically excise taxes are driven by the purchase of new vehicles because that's when we pay the highest rate is when a vehicle is new, and then the rate gradually decreases over a number of years.
Right.
And so I just remember we were astounded by the number of new vehicles that were being purchased because there was all sorts of concerns about people's livelihoods during that.
You couldn't find enough cars. So.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, yeah, the car lots were mostly empty.
Yeah, now you're going to practically.
Yeah. Under granting income, it said recent grants related to town operations have totaled over 190,000. I just thought recent was a bit vague. I think we should say, you know, if we know that the amount is 190,000, we should know sort of over what time span that occurred.
A date, you'd rather have a date?
Yeah.
I'll make a note.
And again, I thought this was a little inside baseball as well when we refer to congressionally directed spending, which is what they are, which is the correct term. But I think most people know it as federal earmarks. I think that's a more common understanding of what that is.
But is it the real term congressional?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's,
See, that's the
Yeah.
official.
yeah. So it'd be fine to use both, but I think people will understand a federal earmark.
Or maybe, but also known as.
Yes.
federal.
Yeah. The next paragraph, it says the town currently maintains separate capital project funds or special revenue funds, which often receive transfers in intergovernmental revenue. And it says as of 2024, these contain $3.6 million and $541,000 respectively. The capital project funds and the special revenue funds, but the special revenue funds, when you look at the chart that is above that, seem to mostly be from, and now we're looking at, let's see, at table 4. The special revenue funds seem mostly to be donations. And so so I don't know. I think with the special revenue funds, I don't know that it's quite correct to say that they receive transfer and intergovernmental revenue. Those are mostly private donations. Like there's no intergovernmental revenue in that special revenue fund, and I'm not certain which of those would be considered a transfer as well.
So we can make that more clear.
Yeah, I just think your special revenue funds are mostly just donations, which are gonna vary from year to year, unpredictably. And the next paragraph, under tax collection rate, it says, due to the town's efforts to manage the town's funds as frugally as possible, the property tax burden is reasonable and affordable to many of Belgrade's taxpayers. Agreed. But the next sentence says the collection rate for current year taxes has been running in a similar range. I have no idea what that means. I mean, I think collection rates are always steady regardless of what the economy is or what the rate is. So I just think that needs some sort of clarification,
Either that or take it out.
or take it out.
Yeah.
I would take it out.
And then again, just a that's all I had on fiscal capacity. Did anybody else have anything that they had questions about or comments or thoughts?
Well, thank you for sharing Winthrop's. I mean, that was well written.
Oh, yeah.
That was really helpful.
Yeah,
Yes. Like to see some of that verbiage here.
So what I did with Winthrop's is I did not reinvent the wheel. So Reedfield had just recently completed its comprehensive plan. they have a whip smart town manager over there. And so I looked at what he wrote and used that somewhat as a template, and then of course tailored it to the needs of the community. I would suggest the same thing. I think,
Agree.
and I think Reedfield is probably more alike to Belgrade as Winthrop is, so. And I think that's particularly true of the next chapter, the capital investment plan. My thought was that this could be fleshed out.
We could put a
than it
lot
currently
more
is.
in this. One of the things I found is that the town does not have a policy, capital investment plan policy. There's nothing in place. There's not even a finance policy.
Well, I don't know that you need a policy, but you do need a plan. And, but, you know, at least I think identifying more of what the town's needs and plans are, looking for. So let me look at some notes here. Yeah, so under financing the CIP, Jessica Cobb, who's one of the planners for KB Cog, noted that the town manager / selectman will have to provide the information on relevancy for each bullet point below. And so, so for instance, under undesignated fund, it says, in keeping with good accounting principles, the town maintains at least 3 months of expenses in undesignated funds by year end. And if memory serves me, the town has fund balance policy, but I don't know that it's tied to the months of operating expense. Maybe it is, or maybe it
We
isn't.
have an investment policy, but I don't believe
But
we have a
that's-
fund balance.
But that's
policy.
different than a fund balance.
Yeah,
policy.
we don't have anything.
That's typical as part of the audit that they
Right.
have to cover.
Right, and so,
You don't remember anything.
No,
The fund balance.
but as far as, how much,
Auditors will tell
yeah,
us.
as far as how much money we have, want to have on hand,
Right,
is
3
it
months.
factored on 3 months worth of expenses?
well, but what I would say is you should check with your auditor, Jen Connors, to see what RKO's recommendation is on what that number should be. So maybe it's 3 months, maybe it's a percentage, maybe, you know, maybe it's something else.
It's usually a footnote in the financial statement.
Yeah.
It should be in the audit.
Well,
They cover that.
yeah, and so in the audit, they do have what the fund balance is as of December 31st
But
of each year.
there's a special note that talks about
Yeah.
the ability to pay.
I just remember my first year here, I asked Jen Connors, the auditor, what that should be. And I can't recall what her reply was, but she knew right off.
That can be
And-
the number.
You're right. But the other thing I think that may need to be mentioned in this, because Belgrade adopts its budget in January, doesn't collect taxes until August and September.
September.
2/3, 3/4 of the way through the fiscal year. And so the December 31st fund balance is kind of artificially high. And so there may need to be a note that notes that's specific condition.
The fund balance could be looked at as one element of whether or not the future expenses, the future cash flow is covered. But depending on the organization, and this being a town, there could be other reasons that you look at future cash flows, for example. What the tax receipts might be coming in. And so that if we read that specific footnote in the audit, it will have to cover that.
Yeah. So I agree, Joy. And so you know, maybe Jen could provide a sort of, what should the fund balance be on August 31st or September 1st? Because that's gonna be sort of the nadir of,
Before the property taxes are.
Yeah.
right. And so that might provide you a better number of what you should be aiming for as opposed to, and you know. And if you have that, then you can possibly get away with not having a tax anticipation note. Which is, for those of you who don't know, that's, you're having to borrow money to make up that gap until your property tax revenues come in, but I don't.
We haven't had to use the TAM
No,
in the
we
last
haven't.
2 years
No,
anymore.
But,
we haven't.
but it remains on the warrant though, right?
Yes, we still have the option.
Yeah,
And
so,
we do have the option with the bank. I mean, we go through it with the bank, but we haven't drawn it.
so this,
But doing that costs legal fees. To put it in.
correct,
You're spending $2,500 to $3,000 just to get a tan.
correct. So this raises an interesting question that has, long been discussed in this room and advocated by at least one town manager, is that, and maybe this is something we include in the comprehensive plan. Maybe one of our recommendations should be that the town goes to a July 1 fiscal year.
I was gonna raise that same question, that
I've mentioned it more than
this
once.
might be a good place for that recommendation to come from.
Absolutely.
Um,
2 tax bills, keep the money coming in, so it's
Yes.
even. It would
And-
really help us.
yes, and you're not 2/3, 3/4 of the way through your fiscal year before you start collecting your
Agreed.
tax ones. But here's the thing, Barbara. The select board could do that at the very next meeting if it so chose. So anyway, what do you guys think about that? So the benefit of having your fiscal year start July 1 as opposed to January 1 is that you're in alignment both with your school system
Yes.
and the state and the county.
Okay.
So that makes it easier from a fiscal.
Seems like that would really simplify things.
Yes, it does.
And
And-
revenue more steady.
And you can do 2 tax
Right.
bills.
Right.
So, 6 months, 6 months. And it might be easier for folks to pay.
And here's been the hangup here in the
I was just
past.
gonna ask, what is the,
So you have to bridge that gap from going from one fiscal calendar to another. And the best way to do that is you have one 6-month budget followed by a 12-month budget. Which means that you'll be making, as Lorna just said, you'll be making 3 tax payments
In
over
18
over
months.
that 18 months than you would with making 1 payment a year.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, you're still paying the same amount of money over that 18 months that you would owe regardless of what the county does.
Would it cost any more in terms of the audit,
No,
having to have a cutoff period,
No.
a stub period?
And I think that's what gets people hung up, is the fact that they would have to make more payments, even though it would be the same total. I think it's an education process.
but yes, but even someone who is as fiscally minded as Tom Dowd would never accept that. And, and I ran the numbers for him once, where I was like, okay, here, Tom, here's how much you're paying on over 18 months, regardless of what the calendar is. And, but at the same time, I also wonder how many people are making those tax payments versus having their mortgage companies make
well,
those
that's interesting.
tax payments. Because it's, yes, that's true if you own your home outright, but if you have a mortgage, then you're paying into that escrow on a monthly basis anyways.
That might help to run the numbers of how many mortgage payments we get in,
Yeah.
mortgage company payments
Yeah,
versus, right, the total number.
Can we easily,
What
can we easily find that?
Sure.
I have
Sure.
a question. So you're saying you pay for a 6-month one, right? And then the next one is for 12 months,
Mhm.
which covers 18 months. Right?
Yeah, you have a 6-month.
Same amount of money as you would, but my question is this, so in a year. You're not just spending the 12 months. In a year, you need to pay for 18 months, so people are going to somehow have to gather additional money within that 12 months than they would otherwise. And then after they get a little break, but I'm just saying, in 12 months, some people who are struggling to pay their taxes, they're gonna have to come up with 18 months worth of taxes. Versus another year where they just have to pay for 12.
So that 6 month budget, you would have to come up with 6 months worth of taxes.
Yes.
But the following year's budget, you could, like Lorna said, you could make 2 payments, which theoretically should be easier than having to. say,
Okay, if it's 2 payments, then it's not like, but if you did have to do one in 6 months. For a full 12 month, then some people in that period of time are gonna have a struggle
And so,
with that money.
But you're not, are you?
what?
If we're doing a 6-month budget before we move to that July 1.
Yeah,
You're only paying 6 months of taxes. You're not paying 12 months in 6 months.
correct. Correct. You're paying 6 months
Okay.
worth of taxes for that
Not-
6 month budget.
And then the
So your tax
next
budget,
year
so your tax
becomes-
bill will be half of what it is.
So if you were changing now, this September, the tax bill would be half of what it was. And then in July, it would be the.
So what you would do is, so because our fiscal year currently starts on January 1,
Oh.
you'd have a January 1 through June 30th budget.
Mhm,
And you would commit taxes like you normally would, and your tax bill would be half of what it
mhm.
normally is. And then when you get to July 1, then you'd have to have a 12-month budget at that point.
Mhm,
You would commit taxes for that 12-month period,
mhm.
and then you would pay, typically, you would pay in October, and then April. is
So
when-
as long as this next year could be divided in 2, then that would be fine, but I think if you just paid 6 months, people would love that, but then they would get hit hard. If they had to pay for a full year.
Yeah, over the next 6 months, then they'd have to come up with their other 6 months that they
Yeah.
would have normally paid in
Yeah.
12 months.
So if you think of it in terms of that first 6 months of the year, January to June, so you have a 6-month tax bill. And then the second half of that year, you have a 6-month tax bill.
Right,
And then the first half of the next
Mhm.
year, you have a 6-month tax bill.
yeah, that would work.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah, essentially you'd be getting, that's exactly right. You'd be getting 6 months worth of tax bills one tax bill every 6 months.
Yeah.
So you're
Uh,
not paying more, you're not coming up with more at once.
Not unless you had the second payment had to be for the full year.
No, you wouldn't,
That-
I
that
don't
would
think
be-
anybody with the July 1, do they do one bill?
some people, so what happens is in a town that has 2, that is on July 1 fiscal year. When you get your first when you get a tax bill, you have the option of paying, if you're on your home, you're not doing this through your mortgage company. You have the option of paying the full amount there in October,
Mhm.
or you can make half your payment in October and half of it
But
in
there's no
April.
payment for making it into 2 payments versus 1. There's no penalty, I'm sorry.
No.
Okay.
No, and, but also, so you also have 2 due dates, so if you miss your first due date, like if you decide you're gonna pay all your taxes in, April. Then you're gonna owe that full amount, plus the interest that you, accrued on the, taxes that you didn't pay for the first 6 months
Mhm.
from October to April.
Yeah, if you wait.
Yeah,
And I think some towns even move their tax bills a little later, November, December, and May.
yeah, I mean, you can
You
do.
could play with it a little bit.
The other thing that is an option for towns that are on a July 1 fiscal year is to have what they call tax clubs. And so people pay into their account on a monthly basis,
Mhm.
so like you would pay into your escrow.
Mhm.
And so that helps them to sort of budget for it and make smaller payments all throughout the year.
Right.
Which you can do now.
You could.
You can do
Yeah,
monthly
I
payments.
know.
So what are y'all's thoughts? Do you think we should have a recommendation to move to a fiscal year?
I think so.
Yeah. It really is much better.
I agree.
It's the initial getting, it's just the
first time.
initial,
It's-
right, yeah, but
it's
you're
never-
not paying more.
It's
and you're
never been
not
done
coming
this
up
way
with
before.
more.
That's the only.
Yeah,
You may actually save on audit too, because these auditors are doing this in their high time season. And if it's a June 30th.
Yeah, most
Full-time.
most main town, all schools are in the July 1 fiscal year, all counties.
Counties.
And most towns are on July 1 fiscal year. And I mean, one of the arguments in the past too has been you would move your town meeting to June. To coordinate with your school budget validation election as well. And so, you know. The argument here has been made, well, you know, people are on vacation in June or they're out on the water because it's a nice day on a Saturday in June.
Or it's always been tradition that we have it in March.
Right.
But wouldn't the town save
But-
money if you met just in June and didn't have the March meeting?
Oh, you
It
would
would be
just
the
go to,
same.
there, you would just have one town meeting.
Okay, so that would save money in theory for the town.
No.
No, you would
You would
only,
just meet in June, not March.
Right.
Oh, okay.
so. So, okay, so I'll make it, well, I'll send, Grania an email saying, hey, this is a recommendation of the committee would like to see worked into the plan. Okay, so looking further, reserve accounts, I made a note here. It says Belgrade's use of saving funds and capital reserve accounts to pay for capital improvements has decreased or increased from past practice. I would say it has definitely increased. Because once upon a time, the town would raise and appropriate monies to put into those capital reserves, and now we use surplus funds from the prior fiscal year, or prior fiscal years, in order to move larger amounts of money into those capital reserves. So
We did what, over $1 million at the March town meeting, which was a lot.
yeah, Grania had struck out in this, or someone did. Bonding and lease purchase agreements, it says Belgrade has not used bonding, but they have permission to do so as necessary for equipment purchases. And they struck the portion that says, but they have permission to do so as necessary for equipment purchases. Permission is through the legislative body. I'm not sure why that was struck, particularly because two paragraphs hence, it says, sale of surplus equipment is generally traded in toward the purchase of replacement equipment. And so I think those, and at least in my mind, those are kind of linked together. But I don't think there's any need to strike that.
But I don't think we've used bonding for equipment purposes. We've used it for paving and, you know, perhaps for the fire station, things like
Well,
that.
but the sentence says Belgrade has not used bonding for equipment purchases. But they could have, but essentially they could if they wanted to.
We could if we wanted to.
And so, Barbara, if you ever have a public works department, chances are you're gonna have to bond to purchase some of the equipment that would be involved with that.
Because it's so expensive.
Because it's so expensive and because you'd have to be buying so much of it at one
Right.
time.
Has not yet used bonding for
Yeah,
equipment purposes.
yeah.
Question about the fact that grant income is kept out of the regular budget. Is that traditionally what's done in towns, that the grant revenue is not kept in the regular budget?
A grant isn't the part of your budget.
Well, so if you,
It says it's
if you
not.
get a grant and you know what you're gonna spend it on, then the expense must be in your budget. And then the revenue, if you know you're gonna get one, you should include that. So, but grants are. You know, who knows if whether or not you're gonna get a grant.
But especially with respect to the fire station,
Yeah,
you know, that is one that should go in the budget at some point, right?
if,
If we get
if,
it.
and when the
Won't
town
be
gets it,
Until the spring.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, if and when the town gets it, yes.
That would be
Right, and that's correct, because that's a situation, if we get the grant, then we have 75% of the cost, which is that much less that we would have to bond.
And-
For the bill.
And if during the course of the fiscal year, the town encounters a revenue that it wasn't anticipating or an expense that it wasn't anticipating, that wasn't in the budget, they can always call a special town meeting in order to address that particular issue. So, you know, in a council form of government, the council could just amend the budget, but because they are the legislative body, here we're the legislative body, so our permission have to be sought.
The board can only spend the money that is approved at town meeting.
Right.
They have no authority to spend.
I just made a note here, the sale of surplus equipment is generally traded in toward the purchase of replacement equipment. The town might explore selling that equipment instead to see if it would yield greater value. Yeah.
Selling it versus trading it in.
Yes.
I don't know how much we've traded in. Nothing since I've been here. Was anything done like that when you were here?
Yeah, but what I found in Winthrop is we put our used equipment, vehicles, so forth.
They go quickly.
Well, we do it like you would, like we used to do for a foreclosed piece of property.
Mhm.
Submit your sealed bid
Right.
and so. I know at one point we sold a police cruiser for $10,000 that I think the dealer was offering us like, you know, $1,500. For as part of the trade-in, so.
Scott does that all the time. Same thing, selling police cruisers.
Yeah,
Because the dealership, you're exactly right. They don't give you anything.
yeah,
But they sell them for several thousand
Mhm.
to just private people. Scott, my husband, I assume everybody knows who Scott is.
so, so let's see, so we're still on page 2, about midway down, maybe about 2/3 of the way down the page. The paragraph starts, example, Belgrade has sufficient borrowing power, but has not taken advantage of this option for the last 21 years due to successful budget planning and oversight. While borrowing is a viable option. So, and that's been X'd out, it says, Belgrade has sufficient borrowing power, but the part that's been, crossed through says, but has not taken advantage of this option for the last 21 years due to successful budget planning and oversight. Well, that's not correct. Because the town, this building's, construction was financed, and is financed. Was and is, and that occurred prior to 21 years ago. And also the town bonds the paving of roads every 3 years. And then those bonds are repaid before the next paving project is bonded. So that's not a correct statement that's been. Or actually. Yeah, that's been X'd out.
I wonder, do we need this example? It seems odd because I don't think we've used that type of writing style in other places with examples, have we?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's a point worth raising that. The town does have the ability to bond a project, but has been judicious in doing so, which I think is smart. But there are times where it's unavoidable.
Okay.
But we said above the Belgrade has.
Yeah, that's not accurate. That's my point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That means.
That means.
But above it says has not used bonding for equipment purposes.
Well, but farther down, it doesn't say equipment at all. It just says has sufficient borrowing power, but it's not taken advantage of this option for the last 21 years.
Right. So that needs to be cleaned up.
Yeah. And in fact. It might be instructive just to include what the town's bond rating is. Because that also shows what the town's borrowing power
Yeah,
is.
that's more objective.
Yeah,
Than, because some of these statements are very subjective.
in fact, I include that as a note on the next paragraph. It says, if the community plans to borrow to pay for capital investments, does the community have sufficient borrowing capacity to obtain the necessary funds? And the response to that was yes. And I said, this can be better illustrated by including the town's bond rating. So it gives you an indication. How strong that is. Oh, so the chart that follows the capital investment projects, and this was a question on my part because I couldn't recall, does the town have a capital investment in the new public water system?
No. The state is,
The state's covering 100%.
yeah, the state is covering 100% of the construction.
Okay,
We still don't have a plan for that. We're on the state's time.
and there's, and this, again, this chart is incomplete because I'm assuming that there must be estimated cost and primary funding sources for each one of these and some of them are.
The fire department just came up with a long-term plan for me this year. I asked Travis to put something together. Ken has something that they have worked on for the transfer station. There was nothing for facilities. So Corey and I have sat down and put a list together for each facility. No costs associated yet. But that is something that we are working on so that this table could be more accurate. There's no, I don't know that there's been anything that the board has voted on for any sense of a,
In terms of a capital investment
No.
project,
no.
or capital investment plan.
So this is all new to hear.
Yeah,
But it is something that we know needs to be done,
Yes, absolutely.
and staff is working on.
Yes.
well, I'm gonna guess that the primary funding source for almost all of that for the fire department would be through the capital reserves. But that's just a guess on my part.
Yes, with the, of course, with the exception of.
The fire station.
Yes, the new fire station, yes.
Well, in fact. Suggested here, it's listed as expansion of fire department. I think maybe it'd be more accurate to say construction of new fire station.
Are you talking about replacement of North Belgrade Station?
No, the second item there, that's the $7 million.
Oh, I'm sorry, expansion of fire.
That is, I mean, that's very accurate.
So that new construction of a new
Fire
fire station, yeah.
Under public works, it says town garage maintenance. Can we be more specific? What does that mean? Maintenance is not typically a capital project.
They're doing, at some point we'll have water, which there is no water at the maintenance garage. They have a porta potty to use to go to the bathroom. So that's something we're looking at, is to put in septic, and then once the water system gets in, hooking up to that, so that's that would be capital, because it's going to be
Yeah.
obviously more than 2,000.
I would just be more specific. I would just say what you just said, that it's water connection and restroom,
Mhm,
simply because maintenance isn't a capital item.
right,
The town garage is the building at the end of Cemetery Road.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay, just want to make sure.
but we couldn't do anything before the state installs the water system there.
Right. Reinforcement slab, to do expansion, there are some things that could be done, but. It's where Corey and I are working on
And I guess maybe the same thing with the salt shed upgrade I'm just curious what sort of upgrade.
it. The roof, all of the rivets need to be replaced.
Okay, I would say salt roof replacement there.
Have to be more specific.
Yeah,
I think there's a torn piece of something on the front too, where somebody backed in. Or hit the side of the building, bringing in sand and salt.
One thing I did not see listed. I think should be, because we do have a capital reserve that already exists, is the public works facility and equipment.
Oh, where's all the equipment going to live?
Yes. But the equipment itself would also be a capital investment.
Right.
In the event that you need to start around plowing.
Since this is gonna be a 10-year plan, I would, if it were me, I would assume that that's gonna be the case. And again, because a capital reserve already exists for that, and the voters said at town meeting that they wanted that to, you know, to be there and to grow. And then one other question, the last item there, the public works, road maintenance and funding. So I'm assuming is that the paving project?
Paving.
I would say paving. Yeah, but again, I would look at the capital investment plan in the Reed Field
Mhm.
plan.
Have you sent that refill plan? to
I
us?
thought it was really good, huh?
Have you sent the refill plan? to
No,
us?
but it's on their website.
I can pull it.
Yeah, Anthony shared the Winthrop plan for capital investment.
Anybody else have anything they want to share on capital investments? All right, I'm geeking out a little bit because I do like governmental budgeting.
It's a skill set.
So the next item on our agenda is discussion of the September public forum. So did we set a date for that?
Yes.
Okay, so I think Grania was gonna, share some thoughts with us about what that might entail, but Chelsea was interested in what do you have something?
December 18.
September 18?
No, sorry, September 18 is public input meeting,
Okay,
and December 18 will be public review and comment.
Is that on an updated schedule that I?
This is the last schedule I have.
From Brian.
Yes, this is from Grant. Do you want me to make some copies for everyone?
Forwarded?
does it have notes or anything on it, or is it just a timetable?
I just must have an old.
The dates and then
Yeah,
on the right hand side here. Do you want me to make copies?
Forwarded.
Forwarded around.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
We had set September 18th.
yeah,
Mhm.
so what would you guys, what do we think we would like to see at that input? How would we like it to occur?
Where is it gonna occur?
I would think the Center for All Seasons.
So that Needs a lot of room.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we can drink.
Yeah.
But we'll have lots of people.
Yes. Is it, do we have like a presentation we'd be giving and all these, the items we've gone through?
Well, so. As I've said from the jump, I think the most important part of the plan are the policies and strategies, the recommendations. So I think, the plan is gonna be lengthy, it's gonna be 300 plus pages or whatever. We don't want to belabor.
Yeah.
No, just get there.
And so I think what we will want to do is pick out some things that we think are, sort of vitally important. And I think those things typically revolve around future land use, around housing, and maybe in our community, the natural resources chapter. I think those are three big ones. And so, maybe we maybe, and we don't have to go through every one of the recommendations, but just say, you know, sorry, under future lands. These are things that we're recommending. We're recommending, for instance, that the town consider zoning so that we can have our community develop in a more planned way, and just things occurring sort of willing. And answer questions.
Should our presentation be structured around what we're gonna ask them to fill out for survey and have them fill it out after the discussion, or?
Oh, I think that's a good idea, Dee. That way they might be more informed when they fill out the survey. Don't you think?
I would think so, yeah. So we were gonna have a Q code.
Yeah,
And so maybe we don't offer that up until later into the
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah.
And then
I mean, if we have like a big screen where we can flash the QR code and people can just point their phones to it
yeah,
and bookmark it. And then it can be posted on the town's website, on its Facebook page, and people can access it that way too.
was Granny gonna put together something for a survey? So, I mean, does she already have an idea of what that's?
I
gonna
think
be?
so.
Or, so,
Yeah,
Just so everybody knows, the email from Brania on May 2nd has the updated schedule.
What did you all do in winter, in May that you felt worked well?
not much.
Oh.
When it came to public input. And most of that sort of predated me, but. I mean, we talked about it a lot at town council meetings, which I think helped to some extent. And what we would do is we would focus on individual chapters
Mhm.
at town council meetings, like, okay, tonight we're gonna share with you what we've been talking about when it comes to future land use. And that became really important in designating what the growth area was going to be. Because that's a decision that ultimately the select board will need to decide is, okay, what do we want our growth area to be? Do we want it to be expansive, or do we want it to be skinny and, you know, meet the sort of the minimum requirements of the state? But do we want to go beyond that? I think that's sort of how we are most successful.
But in terms of only presenting a few of the recommendations, the legislative body, which is voters, will have to approve the entire plan.
Yeah, once it's finished, I
Once
mean,
it's finished.
but
So-
by September, we won't be anywhere close to being finished. So comprehensive plan takes about 18 months. We heard yesterday.
Yes, we did.
It takes about 18 months to finish and, so I think this is just informing and getting input from people about the things that I would assume matter to them most: housing, future land use, natural resources.
So this meeting will be giving us information that we can continue on.
Mhm.
So we need to make sure we focus on the areas that we need information on,
Good point.
as opposed to trying to cover it all as in a presentation of the final plan, which
Yeah.
would be totally different.
Right.
It will help to fine tune what we've come up with. Receiving input.
changing the fiscal year would be an interesting thing to discuss, and although is that too late for what?
No, I mean, that can. I wouldn't think that we're looking at changing the fiscal year in the coming year, but I would think it'd be a recommendation. And I think Barbara's hoping that could serve as the impetus for that actually happening. Don't want to put words in your mouth. That's
Go
what
right
I.
ahead. That way you can't quote me. But it seems like, and looking at the schedule, it seems like the August meeting is the last meeting on specific chapters. And that's,
Land use.
oh, no, sorry, July, public facilities, public meeting planning, and then August land use. And then all of the meetings after that for this committee are kind of fine tuning. And she has town meeting February 19th to approve the plan. But is
That
that,
won't
It's a
be,
good March.
is
yeah,
that something that we would do at our town meeting in March?
it would be.
Yeah, you're gonna have the final version of the plan written. It has to be posted
Right,
for 30 days in advance of town meeting.
January 15th.
If
So,
the town
well,
meeting is,
and town meeting is actually in March. so
it's,
that
yeah, it's
is-
usually March 15th to 20th.
Yeah. Um,
So those dates.
yeah,
Oh, but then it also has to be submitted to state land use team.
well, that's after the town meeting.
Well, she has it before the town meeting.
No,
She has January 15th plan to be complete, submitted to state land use team for approval, and then February.
That's right,
19th.
because they have to approve it, right? First,
Before we vote on
The
it?
legislative body approves it first, then it's submitted to the state. So remember on our current plan where it says it was adopted by or
Town.
passed by the town, it was
Yeah.
actually in 2013,
yes,
and then it became official in 2014.
Yeah.
That's what-
because it's confusing to have
Okay.
that.
Yes,
Okay,
I guess the other thing that we could do is we could take each one of the policy and strategy tables and pick out like one or two things from each one that we think are of interest, importance, and impact,
that's a good idea.
and sort of focus on that.
What is the length of the meeting usually?
Well, it depends. I think anything beyond an hour is taxing people's,
Yes.
Yeah.
It's there.
or they just get up and leave.
Well, it's also gonna be in the evening, so it's after someone's just spent a whole day at work.
Yeah. Although we could, yeah, maybe we could try to do it like on a Sunday evening. Do we think that there'd be any more
That's interesting.
attendance on a Sunday evening?
I don't think people want to go out for a town meeting on Sunday.
In September.
There was actually a good turnout at the special meeting. I'm surprised I think there was more there than there was at town meeting.
We had
March town
80,
meeting.
I wanna say we had 82 at the special town meeting. That was
Yes.
on a Wednesday.
Yeah, so the date of September 18th is a Wednesday.
So, I mean, if we got 82 people, that would be good.
It'd be great.
Really.
Yeah.
We should have free food. That always draws people. Right?
So let's talk about roles. Lorna, what would you see your role as being during the meeting?
I don't know. I haven't gotten that far. I've never done a comprehensive plan, so this is all new to me. I'll do whatever,
I think it should-
whatever anybody feels I should. I'm game.
I mean, I think it should
I've
come
never
from the
done one,
committee,
so.
if you're the ones.
Well, yes, but I also think that we all need to, town manager, select board, committee, all need to play somewhat of a role during the meeting. I'm just wondering what that is. And maybe, maybe the select board is just like the welcome and greeting or whatever.
I'll switch the slides.
Well,
I'll volunteer for that.
How did you handle the meeting in
Well,
Windsor?
again, I mean, most of that stuff occurred before my arrival, and I just think it was done quite badly.
Quite what?
Badly.
Oh,
And,
okay, I'm
you know,
sorry.
as a for instance, they took paper copies of surveys around to people, they got like 8 back. So I just think, I just don't think they were terribly sophisticated in how they approached that.
I think that should be visual,
Yes,
very visual.
Yeah.
People can see, you don't have to give a monologue, explaining it, with a little piece of paper, you can
Yeah.
talk to them.
well, it's important if we're gonna do a PowerPoint that we have like big type,
Yeah,
clean font, one thought per slide.
Yep.
Without it being a paragraph.
Pictures. That's good.
and even if you're doing a zoning change, you can put the whole thing right up there,
Yeah,
kind of point to it.
well, and it might just be bullet points, so like, future land use, consider zoning. And then, one of us gets up and talks about why we think that that's something that the town, a conversation that the town should have.
Something, Mary and I were talking about recently. I don't know what they're called, a clicker?
Yeah.
You've seen like some of the.
With language.
No, a clicker, if you have a room full of people
Oh,
and they
You can
want to
do voting.
vote,
Yeah,
they can use their clicker.
Oh. And it
So-
shows up on the screen, it shows how many
Yes.
people.
So you could almost, if we had something like that in place, you could almost do that with your survey. You could, do you see what I mean? Give people that option to use their clicker for what they valued most in the plan or whatever.
Like I could see, you saying, just. So who here, thinks that zoning is a good thing or a bad thing? You know, A or B. And then you talk about the benefits of zoning.
Yeah.
And then you do another one. Now, have you changed your answer, or do you think it's a good thing or bad thing? I think that's the thing. And it's, one thing that I'm afraid of on the zoning
Mm.
is that they're gonna shoot down the whole plan because they're gonna hear that one word.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
Yeah.
scary word.
but.
But I do think we have to talk about
I
it,
agree.
you know, because it's gonna be an important part of the future land use.
It is not something that we're trying to, oh, tomorrow we're gonna have zoning. This
No,
is a
it's-
10-year plan,
it's-
it's a discussion.
But remember what the recommendation is, engage in a discussion about this. And so let's have an honest discussion now. And so,
And what the benefits are.
well, and anyone who doesn't want to engage in the discussion, I would just say is already just sort of shut their mind to the idea.
Is anyone techie enough to know that if you could put a Q code up in between when you want to have a response, that they could vote right then and it's tabulated somehow?
Yeah, it's usually some sort of app or something that you use in order to do that.
I think it's an actual clicker.
They are
There, you have like.
handheld,
admin.
but it's very private. That's why we were talking about it for town meeting,
Mhm.
because sometimes people are reluctant to vote their conscience at town meeting.
Mhm.
I
But
say,
you have
put your
to-
big girl pants on and vote.
But I didn't say it was me, but.
I
some
don't care
people-
who, man or woman, put your big boy, put your big girl pants on and
Some
vote.
people are
Otherwise,
reluctant
just keep your card in your lap.
To hold their card up and, you know what I mean, and vote their conscience,
On
so.
something controversial,
Yeah,
particularly.
yes, so you could actually have the clicker and they can vote and nobody has any idea what their neighbor is voting.
Mhm.
So it's very private.
I wonder how much that would actually. cost,
But you get instant results.
Yeah.
And again, what I've seen in conferences that I've been in is you have that on your phone, you get into the app,
Okay.
you put your choice and then it pops up on the screen what the.
And there's
That would
probably
be
one,
great, because everybody has a phone.
I mean, I'm pulling up some here that you can do on the phone. The clicker thing probably is somebody that wants to rent those to big conferences.
Oh.
But you could probably do it with your phone.
That's a good option, it's probably less expensive than buying,
Yes.
right?
I would think so.
Yeah.
So what else do we think that we might want to do with the meeting? Anything else, or do we think we have enough basis?
I think somebody should come up with a straw man outline of what the important topics should be.
Okay,
What do we want to learn?
okay, well, I'll tell you what, so I'll take a crack at the first draft. of that. And I'll work with Grania to do it.
Yeah, I think getting her feedback is gonna be really
Yeah.
important.
And I think that one question that I would have concerning a discussion of something like zoning. If we do, it seems to me that that's a meeting in itself, a discussion of zoning.
Just think of it.
And if we do want to have any sort of education about a loaded topic like that, is this the place to do it? Or do we want to identify some of these topics and then have a further
Yeah.
subsequent meeting
Yeah.
on it, so that we could spend a whole hour having a discussion.
Yeah,
Getting
yeah,
some
maybe.
I
Zoom
think
by
that's a
it, right?
great
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah,
Like
I just,
a-
yeah, I guess that's true, Barbara. I just wonder if people are gonna come for a second or a third or a fourth meeting.
Well, for something like that, I bet it's.
For zoning, they might.
And to do it in the form of a charrette of sorts, and we find a good moderator. Might not be anybody here, might not be anybody we know, but there's someone that can keep a room from killing each other. And keep the topic moving.
So,
Do you-
and,
do you-
and the point of this is not to have people vote anything up or down, it's just to gain input. And so it shouldn't be presented as a
Yeah.
vote up or vote down
Yeah.
sort of
So she,
matter, should
So
it?
do you know Harold from Grow Smart
Yeah.
Maine?
Yeah,
He'd be a great moderator, I think.
Yeah.
Cause he's knowledgeable, he's
to do a
personable.
meeting on zoning,
Yeah,
yeah.
Who is this person?
uh,
Oh.
I don't know what Harold's last name is. Would you know what country he's from? He's from one of the, I think one of,
I think.
one of the Nordic
He
countries.
came to one of our meetings.
Yeah.
But he lives in Greenfield or Mount Vernon?
He lived in Mount Vernon, but he recently relocated to Hollowell.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
He was here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have.
But he,
He was here with the city for that housing
yeah,
discussion.
yeah, but he, and he's the board chair for Neighbors Driving Neighbors.
Yeah.
And,
He's really,
but he's a planner by profession and he works for Grow Smart Maine, which is a planning organization, so.
So as far as our discussions on zoning in this event or in a single event for that, the comprehensive plan doesn't necessarily, if we have that included in the plan, doesn't mean that we are definitely going to zoning.
That's
It
right.
means we're considering zoning, or we're doing more investigation and research into zoning. But, so I think that needs to be clear
Yeah.
to everybody that we're just opening the discussion to have a discussion about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean because it's in the comprehensive plan that it's gonna have to happen.
Yeah.
If you vote for the comprehensive plan, that doesn't mean we have to have zoning.
I think that's important.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, and frankly, Dee, that's true, every single recommendation in the plan.
Yeah.
I mean, just because it's in the plan doesn't necessarily mean it'll get done.
yeah,
You know, and like we found with the 2014 plan, there were some things that seemed like good ideas at the time, and then when we started delving into it, we're like, oh, this,
You just said this was relevant.
yeah, not such a good idea.
I think a good, something to cover at the beginning is the roadmap of a comprehensive plan and the time that has gone into getting to the point where we will be at that point. It's not something that's been developed in a couple of meetings.
Yeah.
And all the time that's gone into it, from volunteers, from others that have come forward, from like this guy Harold.
Yeah.
We've had input.
right, and that it's a roadmap, like it, as if it's a suggestion.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, really what the.
And maybe, you know, and maybe Joel Greenwood, who's now the executive director of KV, maybe he'd be a good person to come and just say, hey, here's what the comprehensive plan is, and
Yeah.
here's why it's important.
Yeah, we received a document from KV Cog at the beginning of this saying, I think it's titled something like, why is it important to have a comprehensive plan? What is the process for a comprehensive plan? To take that, maybe it was a 15-page document and have a little paragraph or a few blurbs to talk about might be a good way to
Yeah, I
start things off.
Absolutely.
So I think there's a lot of people that go, what do you mean? you have a
Oh, yeah,
comprehensive
oh, yeah,
plan?"
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to serve on this committee, Kim, is I know how important the comprehensive plan is, but very few people do, you know, and so.
And didn't they say that if we didn't have a comprehensive plan, we wouldn't be qualified to get some grants or money?
To
So
some
that-
extent,
that's-
well, and as a for instance. And this is again, something that we heard yesterday that I've heard in the past and is one of the reasons why you need a comprehensive plan. If you ever want community development block grants, CDBG. Can't get it without a comprehensive plan. You gotta have a comprehensive plan. And if you're wanting it, well, you know. Belgrade doesn't really have a downtown area, but if you're wanting it for downtown revitalization. You gotta have your comprehensive plan or you have your downtown revitalization plan. And so they're sort of building blocks that build off one another.
I think order to the presentation. let's not jump into land use right away.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
That should be tailored to the end, you know,
Yeah.
let's do natural resources, get people warm and invited, and then housing, you know, kind of. build
I think
up.
housing might be the good thing to start, because everyone's concerned about housing.
Well, that's true,
Either because they can't afford it, or they can't find it, or,
All of the above.
yeah.
right.
it's kind of tough one to change. You got cost of everything is going.
Yeah. But it's a matter of sort of greasing the skids. For that sort of development, I think, Pat. And, you know, and the town's already done that with the passage of the LD 2003. Things that were part of the last election. So,
I'd be willing to bet that Grania has a template for how to run your public.
I was just thinking,
Yeah. So let's let her.
Yeah.
okay,
make it our own though,
Oh, yeah, of course.
in case one.
See what Reedfield, see how Reedfield did theirs.
so, so Reed Field. They had a comprehensive, so Winthrop's comprehensive plan committee was really problematic because they wanted to be fully in charge of the plan. They wanted to write it themselves.
So,
And so they started meeting in private,
Who is this?
the comprehensive plan committee in Winthrop. And weren't posting their agendas, and their meetings were sort of unstructured. And as we would say in Texas, it turned into a joke. And so, Reed Field, you had some strong personalities who tried to commandeer the process, and so they had to like. Whether that steered back on track, and so in Reed Field, they actually. Got the plan done, felt like that they didn't have adequate public input, and so then they had sort of they went to community events and had meetings and forums and whatever, in order to inform people before they voted on the plan. So I don't know that there was a lot of input that they got that sort of worked its way into the plan. It was almost sort of an after the fact public input process that was more of an educational process.
right. Congress,
Yeah,
we really didn't meet the need.
yeah. So, well, and that plan, what are we scheduled to discuss next month? Is that part of it?
And also, I think the date on the agenda for next month's meeting.
Yeah.
Should be July 17th versus the 24th.
July 17, public facilities, policies and strategies,
Okay,
and then also public meeting planning again.
Yeah,
okay. All right, well, we'll have that, at least that first draft that we can look at.
I don't think
Sort of-
I'm here that meeting, July 17th.
I'm not gonna be here, but I'll
I've
be
got an MSA
one.
conference.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
And motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Are we gonna stay here all night? Seconds.
we're not.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned at 6:43.
Nice. Not direct, sign. Safe links.
In for you.